Hi there, my name is Roger Sutton, and I do apologise firstly I can't be with you in person today, but my wife Leslie isn't very well. We've been in Greater Manchester now for nearly 33 years. We've served as pastors of a church for most of those years, and now we have a wider role in bringing unity, churches and charities and Christians working together in unity in their cities to help them do that through the Gather Network and the Movement Day process. We love this city, we love its history, its culture, its entrepreneurialism, its diversity. This is a great city region to live in. But now, of course, we're facing huge challenges going forward. Not since the Second World War have we had to face such a mountain to climb as we respond to the ongoing threat of this virus and the recovery process ahead. The people of our city region are reeling from the long-term effects of lockdown, the continued anxiety of new infections and the challenges yet to come. We're facing, as you know, significant unemployment across the region. Substantial food poverty is already increasing. Many viable businesses which provide much needed employment and social infrastructure are no longer able to function. Charities and churches are facing diminishing income, and some fantastic services will cease. The effects of long-term social isolation are starting to be felt. There are reports of increase of cognitive impairment amongst the isolated elderly who have been shielding for 7 months and now face several other months to go. There's widespread concern around young people whose education has become disrupted and whose future job prospects have been reduced. Underlining this, there is a growing concern of the wave of mental illness about to hit us. And on top of this, there are over 2,000 families grieving the loss of a loved one due to COVID so far. We're facing a very serious threat to the warp and weft of our great city region. And in addition to that, of course, churches and charities themselves, their leaders are facing huge challenges, not being able to meet face to face, having to set up online, working how to function as a community of hope in a dark place. Financial challenges, structural challenges are being faced. How do we do church in this period? In Hebrews chapter 12, it uses a very powerful image, which I think is relevant to us today. It talks about the shaking of the heavens and the earth, and that for many that is the lived experience. Our city is being shaken. Our old ways of doing things are no longer viable. We're shaken by anxiety about the virus, by social distance from our loved ones, by fear of our jobs, our livelihoods, and our future. We are like that city in Isaiah, afflicted city, lashed by storms and not comforted. And we stand with Jesus as he looked over his city, Jerusalem, and he was deeply moved within him, and he wept. And so we do lament. We stand with the bereaved, the fearful, the most vulnerable. We cry out, as the psalmist did, "How long, O Lord? Where are you, God, in all this?" It's vital we stay in the place of lament. It's vital we hear the cry of the poor. It's vital that it moves us, because without deep compassion, we will not respond as we need to. However, the Bible, of course, won't allow us to reside forever in Good Friday. At every point when life seems the most bleakest and darkness is all around us, there's always a message of hope, a new word in an old world. It is God who hears the cry of his people and responds in compassion towards us. To the afflicted city, lashed by storms, a new word comes. Isaiah chapter 54, "I will rebuild you with new foundations, gates, walls, and great will be your peace, and tyranny will be far from you." To those who are shaken in Hebrews, there is the promise that what cannot be shaken, the good things of the kingdom of God, will remain. The dross will be poured away, and the new Jerusalem will arise. I'm not sure if Andy Burnham knew that he was quoting Isaiah, but the phrase "build back better" is embedded in Christian hope. In Isaiah 58, it says, "Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins, rise up the age-old foundations, and you will be called repairer of broken walls, restorer of streets without dwellings." I'm a great fan, actually, of the house building programs. I think I'm a bit of an armchair expert now. You can see sometimes the outline of the once great building on the restoration programs, pictures of what it used to look like. And then you get a tour around what this great once architectural gem was. And now you see the damp and the crumbling walls and the broken roof. And then you get the architect's drawing of what it will look like, the vision for it. And it's a wonderful dream. And of course, everyone knows whether they're restoring a building or building a new building, will decide, of course, they're going to complete it within 6 months. And we know it's going to take 3 years. And everyone wants to be in by Christmas. And we ask the question, which Christmas? And of course, they have a 10% contingency budget just in case the unlikely prospect that it goes over budget. That contingency, of course, is blown out of the water in the first 2 weeks when they uncover a Saxon burial site. They all run over time. The only time they never run over time is when they employ Germans to do it, who just pop over on the Eurostar, build it for 4 days and then pop back again. The weather, of course, is always the worst in 100 years, and it causes near divorce and family feuds. And they say, well, how difficult can it be? And they have all at least 2 children by the end of the process. We have a massive rebuilding project ahead of us, and I don't know how long it's going to take. It's going to take longer than 6 months. We have a city that will not look the same again. It will not be what it was. It was already facing huge challenges, but now those challenges are greater. But it can, with God's grace, be better than it was. But to respond to that, I think we have to get our posture and our attitude right. It's no good bending over and putting your head in the sand. It's no good being a rabbit caught in headlights. We have to face up to the reality around us. At the start of this crisis, I was really challenged by the statement, people always remember those who helped them in a crisis, and they remember those who didn't. This is not the time to be found missing in action, walking away from those most in need. If we do that, we'll be like the priest and the Levite who passed by on the other side of the road, looking at the man who was beaten up, but doing nothing. So let's make sure we don't keep our heads in the sand, but also let's make sure we don't just look down and navel gaze at this time. This is not the time for insularity and navel gazing. I realize we have some strong challenges as the church. I realize many of our leaders are really struggling, but there are worse things happening in our city region than they are in the church. And they desperately need us. They need the love and the compassion of the church. We have elderly people in our city who have not left their homes for 7 months. We have an increasing number of people relying on food banks. We have a sharp increase in suicide, and we have nurses and doctors and health staff trying once again to rise to the immense challenge of COVID after months of being on the front line. If ever there was a time to seek the kingdom of God and leave the building of the church to God himself, this is that time. So our posture at the moment is really critical. It's not to put our heads down, it's not to navel gaze, but it's time to lift our heads up and be the hands and the feet of Jesus in this city. Our city region needs the church. I'm deeply impressed actually by the response of some churches and charities over these last few months. Many places, their doors have not been closed actually. They've been open to serve and feed and love. And it was a privilege actually to hear some of those stories on a Zoom call with Andy Burnham, with 120 Christian leaders. Some of them respond with such commitment and personal cost. They have wrapped their arms around this great city region. So let's not put our head in the sand. Let's not keep our heads down, navel gaze, but let's lift our heads up in practical action and in prayer. But there's also, I think, another posture we need to adopt. And that is to reach out our hands and join together as one body across the region. The Bible is very clear about unity. It's not an additional extra to be added on to the main task. The Bible places unity at the very heart of mission. We do unity because God does unity. He is unity, of course, 3 in 1, harmony, interrelated, interconnected. We do unity because spiritually the church is already united in Jesus. It is one body. We're expressing what is. And if we don't engage in what is, we are falling outside what it means actually to be the church. We do unity because this is where God commands the blessing. We do unity because we want to fulfill Jesus' last prayer in John's Gospel. We do unity because Jesus says that if you live out the command to do unity, the world will know that he lives. So it's a missional imperative. We do unity because not to do unity is a fleshly sin. All the letters in the New Testament have huge warnings about disunity, selfishness, arrogance, dissension, jealousy, factions. We're told not to bite each other and devour each other. We have warnings against discord and selfish ambition. We are called to love one another. That is what unity is about. It's a unity that needs to be found in our marriages, in our families, in our friendships, in our neighborhoods, and it needs to be found amongst churches and Christians and networks and denominations. I could take you around this world and you would see an incredible thing that God is doing. I could take you to cities like Mumbai, where they operate as one church, 1,200 churches across a city of 22 million people. I could take you to Berlin and Dallas and Durban and Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. I could take you around this country to Reading and Bristol and Teesside and other places where churches are acting as one body with one love for each other and one love for their city. There are many reasons to embrace and work hard to keep unity, but the crisis has just added another reason for unity, and that's desperation. To get through this, and to serve our city region, we will need to stand arm in arm. This is not the time to do your own thing. This is not the time to stand alone. This is not the time to be isolated. This is the time to stand together. The mayor on the call and in subsequent discussions has challenged us to work together as one body across the region to serve people. He realises, of course, we already provide the vast majority of food banks, youth provision, elderly care, toddlers groups, and much more. We are the largest voluntary force in the city region. The trouble is you don't know that because we're all so isolated. But once you pull it together, it becomes a fantastic force for good. However, the problem is he can't work with us when we're isolated. They don't know which denomination to ring or who not to ring. They don't know which network or charity to contact. They need one point of contact. They need one website. They need one way in which to engage and to then create a delivery vehicle for the good things that need to happen across this city region. Yes, we need to carry on doing what we're doing. Yes, we need to increase our services, but we need to do this more together. Following that call, a number of leaders from churches, charities, and networks have been putting together a draft proposal. And the proposal is to form a movement for recovery. We'll get this draft proposal out to you as soon as we can, and over time we'll form it and develop it, and we'll come up with a structure and a vision, and with God's grace, we will be able to serve our city region better. I know we're struggling as a church. I know we're under pressure. I know we feel weak and inadequate at this time. We have our backs against the wall. But that's exactly how the early church was. They were weak, insignificant, and powerless. But that's usually where God likes the church to be. We are at our best, actually, with our backs against the wall, because then we begin to cry out to God. And through him, he can do his work. He can provide the imagination and the resources that are necessary. All he needs is obedience, humility. He needs a unified church, and with that, he can change cities. And he can rebuild them on the foundations of love, justice, and shalom. This is the time for unity. God bless you.